Hey everyone, in today's session we're going to highlight how Immuta simplifies, scales, and reduces the maintenance overhead of Snowflake data access and security policies. So there's three main reasons why you should care about Immuta. The first is that we create native Snowflake controls. Two, the Snowflake policies that we create, we actually allow you to build them in an easy to understand way using plain language so users can actually understand the policy without having to write SQL. And three, we automatically update and manage policy as rules change, whether it's coming based on the data types you have or the sensitivity of your data in your data sets. Let's take a look at Snowflake. You can see I have Snowflake pulled up here in the browser, and what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at this medical data set. It's all fake data in here. And essentially what we're going to do is we're going to show how you could do this today with Snowflake and then really show you the value of what Immuta provides. So for example, Snowflake has this extract semantic categories function you can use inside of Snowflake. So if I run this query here real quick, what this will do is it'll actually go out and sample the data in this table and return classifiers back so you can kind of determine what type of information you have in your systems. And so here's an example. You can see this JSON object that comes back. Now, as someone who's technical building and managing these policies, you can then use this object, these data sets, this classification to build tags in Snowflake. So there's actually a second function you could call and run here called associate semantic category tags, and you would basically just pass in this method into the category extraction result. Now this will automatically go create Snowflake tags based on the classifiers you see here in the output. Now the nice thing here is if you have a couple tables and you have very simple policies, what you could do is you could do this and then you can actually go define policies now in Snowflake that reference these classifications or these object tags you've set. Now this becomes a manual process when you have to constantly be checking for changes. You have to update this and rerun these procedures to actually go out and automate this for you. So the thing I'm going to show with Immuta today is that we can automatically pick up any object tags you've built in Snowflake, but we reduce policy logic in Snowflake. So if you've ever built a Snowflake masking policy, you understand that it's a lot of SQL. You actually have to build in some logic to show how the masking should be applied. So if I just show you an example here of what that looks like, here's the Snowflake documentation on how to actually create a masking policy. So you have to do some grants to actually get access to create these, and then you have to actually go create the masking policy, right? And so you can see an example masking policy here. They're actually just using a role and then they're hard coding in some asterisks to filter out the data. Now, this again is great for simple use cases, but what ends up happening in organizations is you might have thousands of tables across multiple databases, and there's probably some sort of dynamic rule you need to set where perhaps someone who's in the United States should only be able to see US data, otherwise we should be redacting information from those tables. And you can imagine there's lots of scenarios where people might have US and Canada, US and France, and various combinations of these country codes that we need to filter out. And that becomes very cumbersome to have to go in and actually manage these case statements yourself. So what Immuta does is it's going to automate this process for us. So if I go into Immuta and show you really quickly, we actually have an easy way to search for data. So you can search for types of data here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this medical table. And then here you can actually go over to the data dictionary tab and you can see something Immuta's done out of the box. So when I told Immuta to protect this database, it auto scanned the data for me and brought back the classifiers here. You also can add your own or pull in Elation or Calibra, but now the value of this is that you can now go into Immuta and build access control policies. So the first thing I could build is how do people get access to this table? Well, I can set up a policy that shows whether or not it shows up in Snowflake for them. So in this case, I'm saying, if you're in a department of clinical trials, you should be able to find any health information. And that's going to apply anytime a new table comes on board. This will automatically pick up and do the grants necessary to get people to be able to query that information. The second thing I want to do is I want to build a policy that just hides all of this information, right? And so you could see in that original table I have a lot of sensitive information here, and Immuta allows you to quickly build a policy that, again, you don't have to understand SQL code here. Users can come in and actually use those classifiers that Immuta detected to build policy. So again, I'm going to build some masking rules based on the type of data we've discovered, and I'm going to apply it anytime we find this health information in a table. So if a new table gets added to Snowflake, this policy will automatically monitor for new tables monitor for schema detection, schema changes, and will automatically apply this. You don't have to go write any SQL code. You don't have to go run any of those manual processes. So for example, if I go back into Snowflake now and I rerun my query here, what we've done behind the scenes is we've pushed in Snowflake masking policies or row segmentation policies, whatever I define in my policy, automatically behind the scenes. So if you look here, all of these different columns now are masked based on those classifiers. And if I show you what we actually did here is if I run a query to show you all the policies we've created, this is what you would have to do today on this one table to get the masking policy. So you can see each of these individual policies have actually been set. And if I show you an example of what we're actually generating here is that we're really relieving a maintenance burden for you by auto creating the SQL necessary to do this. And again, we're doing some additional things like injecting attributes of the user and purposes, which we can talk about in another video, but this is automating all of those policies for you in a single place. And now if I go back into Immuta and say I wanted to disable this policy, I don't have to go through and manually drop all these or delete them. So if I actually change the policy, Immuta is, again, orchestrating all these native controls for you, really reducing the amount of time you have to spend managing these types of access control policies or masking policies or granting people access to information. So that's a quick explainer. For more information, I'll put some links to Immuta, just some general overview information as well in the description of this video. Thanks so much for watching. Have a good day.